Hello, hello, welcome, my heartfelt leaders. This is Ashley Pitzer, your host with Practicing Life. Today I have Gina Hansen. Am I saying that correctly, Gina Hansen?
Yep, you are.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure because in my head, that's the way it sounds. And anyway, but this is Gina Hansen, and she is a wellness coach and an energy healer. And some of the things that we have talked about on this podcast have been in those two categories. And so I am thrilled to have Gina on here. And as someone who heals energy, she specifically works on kind of releasing and helping you transcend your generational trauma. And I know from personal experience that you can totally have ancestral trauma carrying in your body. And I'm so glad to have her on my podcast here where we can kind of dive deeper into this. But Gina is also multifaceted. She's like super brilliant. She used to be a flight attendant. She transitioned over into this new career path. She helps people with rising their frequency, with realignment to their purpose, and with releasing pain. And I specifically know Gina, again, from our Jim Fortin's transformational coaching program, which is TCP. And she was somebody she stood out to me. And one of the things that stood out to me was how quickly she turned to kind of this like bubbly energy, very pleasant and soothing. And I really found it fascinating that she was tapping into an inner knowing without necessarily knowing constructual facts. And I really love that about people who can access what is in their body already, because our subconscious mind is so vast and we are all connected. And so to have Gina on the show and kind of talk about who she is, how she came to be here is going to be super fantastic. And let's get started. So Gina, tell us your story.
Thank you. First, so I have to say thank you, thank you to you, Ashley. Thank you for inviting me here to share and to get to know you as well. My story begins. Gosh, I could go back from the beginning. I'm an island girl. I was born and raised on the island of, well, on the island. Well, I was born on the Big Island and raised on the island of Oahu in Hawaii. And one of the biggest blessings I had was the opportunity to become a flight attendant. And my family never traveled much while I was a kid. So this opened doors to me to learn about different places, different people, different cultures, so many things. And that was such a blessing. And actually, I became a purser. I also was in their training department in training other flight attendants. I love my job. It was so rewarding. But the pandemic came in 2020, and I had an opportunity to leave. And even though I love my job so much, I chose to take the offer and retire, even though I had no idea what I would do after that.
Yeah.
Something was just kind of pulling me out and just saying, take it, this is an opportunity, instead of seeing it as a lot of my friends that were on the fence about leaving were really just struggling with this idea of what can I do? I'm in my 50s. I've spent close to 30 years in this career. What can I do now? Or thinking about their finances, or thinking like there's just no other hope for them. And I chose not to see it that way, because I I believe that we all have purpose, and little simple things that we do help so many people. So just our being helps the world. I just see things differently. So I was able to take that opportunity. But the problem I didn't realize was that I actually went into a depression,
Mm.
and I would lay on the couch most of the day, because there was more than just this career transition on my plate at the time. You see, in the course of 6 months in 2020, I had been diagnosed with cancer, gone to Mexico for integrative holistic treatment, left my marriage, redecorated a home for myself. And then, all of these things happened in 6 months. So I was healing physically from cancer. I was healing emotionally from being a single woman again, on my own and trying to find my way. And then boom, I have this career transition. So everything was, my whole life was upside down. And I think that's probably, I just needed some time to sit with it, sit with the transition. And so it took a while, but I was, again, like you said, Ashley, so thankful to be introduced to Jim Fortin at that time, because he was like a lifeline to me in this time of transition. And one of the things I learned through the program was the ability to, number one, choice. I had a choice to lay on the couch, or I had a choice to do something. And then there was the whole premise around identity and how we can actually create our identity and start to use, like you're talking about, using your mind to create that alter ego. So those are two of the big concepts that helped me initially. But the third thing that really helped me pull myself out of this slump was the idea of raising my frequency. And little did I know that just getting up off the couch and dancing, listening to music and just dancing crazily around my house by myself would make me feel better. And everybody has their own thing. But for me, it was dancing. And because I was raised as a hula dancer from 5 years old, and I actually danced professionally for Polynesian shows and things. And so dancing was like just the thing that I needed to pull me up out of the slump. And so it became my go-to. Like every day when I was feeling crappy, I just put on some music and danced one song, and it just shifted everything for me. And so if you're listening to this and you're finding it a difficult time in your life, find what works for you. I find that music, even just listening to singing, using your voice to get that energy out, moving, going for a walk, being in nature. There's so many things that we can do to lift our spirits. Go on a vacation.
Oh gosh,
Take
yeah,
a
I'll
time
take
out.
that.
Change, right? Take a time out, see something, experience something new, experience a new culture, because we have to get out of ourselves. Volunteer is another idea, to get out of how we feel about ourselves and just to be of more service to people who need us. So that's another idea that you could look at if you're having a hard time right now. But for me, that's what I did.
And see, when you're talking, what comes to my mind is like you took responsibility for what you were feeling. And so, and through that, you made your choice, which is really beautiful because it takes awareness. And I know it sounds silly because we're feeling and making meaning machines, right? But all day long we're feeling, and
Mm.
and we're not always aware of what we're feeling. And so it's really beautiful when you do kind of pay attention to your own processes within your body and the emotions coming through, and then empower yourself to make that choice. And I mean, you threw out a lot of like tips and suggestions, which I really love. So it's definitely fun to even discover what brings you joy, because I like you, I like to tie things in and too. So like I, like you, came to Jim Fortin and TCP at a time when things were kind of falling apart for me as well. So I was leaving my marriage. My kid was suicidal and I think had 6 attempts on his life before I started TCP. And so and I was also going through a career change. So very similar, I didn't have
Wow.
cancer, but very similar. I had all of
Yeah.
these cards kind of stacked up, and I was
Mm.
really feeling emotionally low. And I came into TCP too.
Mm.
And really learned how to shift that. But what I find, because we both went to the same program, and this program is, for those of you who don't know it, it's a 14-week program. Every week there's a different focus. And so, for me, I came into TCP to work on a relationship, which ultimately is the relationship with myself. But I think it's really interesting that for you valued the raising your frequency, like that was your like one of your key things. I find that super interesting because we all have things that we gravitate to. I mean, there's no right or wrong here, people. So anybody listening, everybody's going to gravitate to what they need in that moment, and it can change at any time. So I find it really interesting. And because also as a person outside of you, as just an observer of you, when I saw you, your frequency always was really high. So, I mean, it shows the work that you've done, and what you value is often created. So, very exciting.
Yeah, thank you. Before I continue talking, I really want to find out how your son is doing now.
Oh, absolutely fantastic. And that's one of the things that was really interesting about this process. I started TCP, and through that process, coming into it, I was raised, especially in the like kind of the Christian faith, that you put other people first all the time. And I was really, really living that to a detrimental point. And so when I entered into TCP and I really learned about self-love and self-worth, I really started choosing myself. And I was at that, a whole year of trying to basically do everything that you're supposed to do according to doctors and psychologists and counselors in the school. And I was living what was instructed. And I was taking my kid to, pastures and different, I was doing everything you possibly could based on human standards of what society tells us we should do. And I entered into TCP and I started choosing myself, and I just started saying, all right, I have to let go of the fact that, and stop fearing the fact that he may lose his life. I have to stop fearing that. I have to accept that this is what he's feeling. I have to accept that this is what he's going through. I may not like it. I may not agree with it. I'm not supporting it or condoning it. But the fact is it's, I tried to control it for a year with medicines and with doctors and everything, and it wasn't working. And I just started to focus on me, and I stopped focusing on him. And when I started focusing on me, he paid attention and he mimicked, and he started focusing on him. And I mean, right now he's happier than I've ever seen a kid be happy. And I mean, we talk all the time. We talk about um, our transitions and our growth and how proud we are of each other, that, each one of us is doing what is good and right for us.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Wow, I got so much out of that because I feel like sometimes that is what we need, especially share like these emotions, knowing that your emotions actually affect him. So if you're going to stay in worry and fear, then that actually he can absorb it and share it as well.
yeah.
So that's
I,
really empowering right there.
I was picking up his fear too. I was picking up his,
Mhm.
oh, his lack of luster, his darkness. Oh,
Yeah. So yeah, one of the really good things that happened for me this week is I am able to help a mother who's going through something similar
oh,
to what you
okay.
were experiencing this week. And so now this kind of ties in the frequency thing. So um, one of the things that I do in my sessions is I calculate your frequency, and I use muscle testing to find out. And I use a chart by Dr. David Hawkins. He has a chart on emotions and frequency. And so the boy that I was working with, 23 years old, beautiful, beautiful boy. And yet he was in the frequency of in the 50s, which is the life view is hopeless and the emotion is despair.
Yeah.
And I just got out of a session with him this morning. He's in the 300s to start. So
Woo!
that is such a
Woo!
huge shift. In the 300s is the emotion, is the level of willingness. The emotion is optimism, and the life is hopeful.
That's
Just
wonderful.
just one session with him, and he's in a different space.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. So now, did you use like the energy work? Did you do more searching as far as like feelings and identifying them and no?
No, so for him, I'm not doing any coaching. It's strictly energy healing. We're breaking down his life heart wall, and that's where we're starting. At least we're starting with his life heart wall. But and it was so beautiful because the connection that we had, like he felt comfortable to cry and open up to me. And so he reminded me of my son. So I started to do a little like what I would tell my son, not really coaching, but just sharing wisdom with him. And he was open to it. And I think that even helped him open up even more. It was so beautiful to see him
Yes.
come out, you know, and shine again. It's beautiful.
Oh, I know when I started seeing my sun shine again, I mean, that raises my frequency up even more. So, I mean, and then that's one of the things, like when we heal ourselves, that the way that we heal ourselves and the way we start shining helps other people. So it is so important just to even do your own inner work. So let's dive into, because some of my listeners may not be aware of your emotional code healing. So let's dive into it, talk about it, explain it in a
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
your
So
simple me
back to
version.
my story of after I got up off the couch, started dancing around. I really didn't know what I was going to do for work, but like Jim says, the world needs us, and I was trying to figure out who needs me. Who needs me right now? So what I realized is I wasn't the only one feeling depressed, leaving a career that we all loved. You know, there were thousands of us that felt the same way. They weren't ready to retire. Never thought in their mind that they would retire this, you know,
Yeah.
at this time. So what I did was I started doing webinars, teaching them, and I didn't know about frequency and things like that. I started doing this stuff and helping them, you know, supporting them in this transition, talking about identity, talking about, you know, helping them realize that you don't have to associate yourself with as a flight attendant. You're so much more than that, you know,
Yeah.
and trying to like, instill this hope for them to create something new. And so that's where I started. And then little did I know one thing led to another thing, which led me to an email that led me to a book that led me to another book. And I found The Emotion Code, the book
Okay.
by Dr. Bradley Nelson. And so I started reading that book, and then it dawned on me that what he's talking about in this book about having a heart wall was exactly what I was experiencing in my marriage with my husband. Like there's literally a wall of energy between us that was stopping us from connecting.
Yeah.
And so I was just super intrigued by that idea. And I started doing some work on myself with someone who was practicing the emotion code. I started working with them, and then my life started to shift. And she encouraged me to get my certification. And I was, if I wasn't working with someone who was so encouraging, I would not have gone down this path. But it was truly because of her inspiration and her belief in me when I didn't believe in myself that pushed me over the edge and said, go try it, do it, you know?
Mhm.
And so I got my certification, and that was the beginning of a whole different world for me. Like I I mean, the person I am today is nothing like the person I used to be. I am just more open, more grateful, more, you know, like everything has shifted. I didn't understand energy healing. And if you read the book by Dr. Nelson, I've never been experienced. I was never a hippie chick, a woo-woo girl, you know. All of this was totally new to me. Not really new, but because I had been experienced, I mean, I had experienced it in Mexico when I went for cancer treatment. So that's when I was first introduced to energy healing. What's that?
So that's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So that's when I was first introduced to it. But you know, then it comes back a year later, and I'm certified in doing this myself. And um, yeah, so I didn't understand. The book is very science based, so he doesn't talk about the woo at all. So I needed to find out, how is this happening? What is behind this? So thankfully, another connection through TCP introduced me to another form of healing called pranic healing. And I got started taking classes in that, and I've got taken pretty much every class in 1 year. But I was like gobbling up this information and learning so much about how we can heal our bodies naturally. And then so that just kind of opened me up. And then I started meditation practice. I mean, it's my world is continuing to evolve because of this opening up to this spiritual side of me. And then just recently I got my certification in the body code, which is the next level of the emotion code. And a little, because I didn't really talk about emotion code. So basically, Dr. Nelson, who's a retired chiropractor, came up with this system of using accessing the subconscious mind to speak to the subconscious mind to find out what are the problems, what is the associated imbalances that are coming from this emotion. So say for example, we have a headache. Behind a headache is there's an emotion at that part of our brain or whatever that's talking to us. Basically, our body talks to us, aches and pains, issues like that. There's something there. And so it was a way for us to use muscle testing to check, he's made this really cool chart, and you can find it in the book. But basically, it really works. Like our subconscious mind, in an attempt to protect us, will put these energies around our heart, forming a heart wall. And we can have a life heart wall. We can have relationship heart walls with people, with money, with things like food, things like that. So it's super interesting. And this next level body code is even more interesting because it just is not just physical. There's actually, it addresses issues with our energy body as well. There are some disconnections that we have between and communication problems between organs and things like that a doctor wouldn't be able to tell you, so that's the kind of, and curses and entities and things like that you can't go to the doctor to find this stuff out. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, when I first came into energy work, I was just doing it to be experimental, like as in someone doing energy work on me. I was just curious. I'm a curious person. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to try this. I'm going to do this. And when the person was kind of doing meridian line energy work on me, I was like, oh my gosh, my freaking solar plexus, it feels like when I was pregnant and my child was kicking the daylights out of me. And my solar plexus was literally thumping outside of me. It was like, when I was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like they're like, oh, I feel it. And they're not touching you at all, And I was like,
Mhm.
oh, I got some work to do.
Yeah.
I certainly did have a lot of work to do. So
Yeah, well, the solar plexus, that's the right here between your ribs area. That's where we hold a lot of emotions, and that is
here.
why a lot of us have digestive issues and stomach issues and things. It's because we're just very emotional, and this energy actually builds up, and it just needs to be released, cleaned, and energized.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm right there with you. And I guess like one of the things, like, cause you talk about releasing the transcendent.
Heart.
So yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
generational trauma, no,
Yeah.
generation. Yeah.
And so like I honestly, before I started working with somebody on energy work, as just an everyday person, I'm a yoga instructor and I do all of these things. Like I go to my sound baths and way into meditation. I have all of these facets. I studied for a year under a witch even, so I have all of this knowledge, but I had no idea that you could carry like that trapped energy could carry from mother to child and transcend to the next person. I mean, I understood that there were like curses and hexes that could, but I didn't realize like I guess the science of the energy behind it. So have you worked with too many people that have had this, or
Oh, everybody has it.
oh, you feel like everybody does?
Everybody does. Yeah. So in the emotion code, there's 6 different types of trapped emotions, the ones that you experience in your life that you know of. Then there's absorbed emotions, which like you and your son, you start to absorb. You can absorb emotions from an animal, from a location, different things like that. So that's something. And then you can share emotions. Like during the pandemic, we all shared fear, anger, lack of control, so we have a global consciousness energy around emotions. And then we also, in our mom's womb, we start to pick up on what is their mom feeling, what is their dad feeling, you know, and all of their dynamic, you know, we tune into that, and we can actually start to trap emotions in womb. And then there's the emotions that come from past lives that our subconscious remembers. And those are the lessons that we have brought in to this life to continue to work on. So it's, to me, that's like such a gift to be able to, because I take all the notes for the people that I'm working with so they can just relax, and to be able to look back on that and say, I understand now why I am in this situation. It's a lesson. I see, I'm learning that this frustration, I need to be more patient, and, you know, so they can actually see that what they're experiencing is, you know, it's in black and white. They can put their hands around and grasp it. That's why this is happening to me. And then have come from a different point of view, instead of the view that they would or the reaction that they normally would have had. They can actually have a higher perception of their lives. So I think that's a gift. And then lastly, like you're talking about generational trauma. So this is inherited emotions. And when I work with you, I tell you, does it come from your dad? Does it come from your mom? How many generations does it go back? And one cool thing too is actually in the body code, sometimes we inherit emotions that are actually miasms. And a miasm can actually come from an ancestor who had, you know, some kind of a trauma, or and like it could even just be a sickness memory, and their memory gets passed down into your DNA, and you can inherit this miasm. But the best thing about finding and releasing these inherited emotions, it affects your life, but it also goes back all the way. It clears the energy from all of your ancestors above you, where it started, and then your children, their children. Then just it stops that cycle.
Oh, good.
So it's super, super awesome.
Yeah, so I'm not as educated on emotional coding, so I didn't even know you had another level of body code. So
Yeah.
does it keep going up? I mean,
Yeah. After this, he's going to incorporate the belief code.
Okay.
And inside there's all these charts, and basically your subconscious mind will lead you to thoughts that you didn't even know, your limiting beliefs and things that you didn't think was a problem, but we'll be able to pinpoint what they are. So yeah, it's super cool.
That is really cool. So, yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I wanted to say, in case people didn't know, is that, so, you know, with you starting off as a flight attendant, my understanding from knowing other flight attendants is that the longer that you're in this career, in this profession, like the more cushiony and easy it gets. Like, as in you get the preferred flights, your pay goes up really well. I mean,
Yeah.
the benefits really build the longer that you're staying. And so
Right.
for you to go from this type of situation where you kind of had a career that was like, I won't say cakewalk, but
Yeah, no, it was.
okay, okay.
Yeah,
I
it
can
was.
say it. So you go
Yeah.
from this career where you kind of have it all your ducks in a row, as far as like it's financially rewarding, it's time-wise rewarding,
Yeah,
to
super flexible.
super flexible, to this stepping into the unknown and being like, you know, I don't even know what I'm going to do. And then whoop, bam, like all this synchronicity comes into your life. And you're just like, it seems like you snowballed through this time where just one thing clicked and the next thing opened up, and it's just like bam, bam, bam. And now you're here. And I want to say, like, didn't you even get and this is terrible because I'm certified in it and I can't even EFT.
Oh, oh yeah, emotional freedom technique.
Yeah. And
I use it,
yeah.
but I'm not certified in it.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Are you a neuralistic
Oh,
practitioner?
NLP,
Yeah.
neurolinguistics. Yes, I
Yeah.
am.
That's what I was
Yeah.
thinking too. I'm like, I am too. And I'm like drawing a blank on this. Isn't
Yeah,
this
yeah.
terrible? I guess that's because you don't even think about what you use anymore, your tools anymore. Sometimes your tools just become like your back pocket, you know, like
Yeah.
you can't remember what you ate for breakfast. Like it's like
Yeah.
one of those things. So
Right.
yeah, yeah. So you've got all of these tools in here, and this is what I remember from seeing videos of you, but you also work on pets as well as like people. So
Yeah.
talk about the difference between that. Like, what do you notice?
Oh,
What
oh,
does the energy required of you change at all? I'm a really curious person. So I'm like,
right. No, I'm curious too. And that's how I've discovered so many things and love it, and I'll just test it out too. Kind of an example of this, it's kind of regret going back a little bit, but yesterday I was working on somebody who wanted to release a relationship heart wall, because actually I have a special going on for the rest of this month on releasing a heart wall with a loved one. And she had a list of the people, and we were trying to see which one was going to be the best one. And it ended up being the third person that she mentioned. And she's like, I wouldn't have guessed it was my mom. And I thought it would be my wife. And I was like, well, I don't know what it is, but that's what it's testing at. And so the reason was apparent at the end after we released everything. It was like, I get it. But it's so crazy. I don't know why I'm telling you this story, but it just reminded me of yesterday, and how, sometimes we think that it should be a certain way, but it's not. And then it's only through going through the actions that we discover the reason. So, but with animals, it's different because they don't talk. So I get feedback from the people I work with, like yesterday in this situation, I released her heart wall with her mother, and she started to feel a sudden heaviness in her chest, and her throat was feeling a little off. And so I said, well, your body's telling me there's something else there. So we went from the emotion code to the body code, and that's where we pulled out a miasm as actually the start of all of these problems in her relationship, was because of this energy of sickness memory.
okay.
So and then of course the pain goes away, that you feel a lot better. She actually was so excited and happy after that. I thought she was going to do a cartwheel. I was like, who is this girl? I can't believe she's like so like bubbly all of a sudden. Like her energy just shifted from doing that work. And so back to dogs. So like I can get the feedback. I can find out, oh, this is how I'm feeling now. I think something's going on. I feel this tightness. But with an animal, you can't feel that. I mean, you don't get that feedback. So it's really interesting, because you only can witness them in action after. If their energy shifts, you can visually see that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then you'll notice that their appetite will be better. Their whole energy would be just like up again. So it's different in that sense, but the way that I do it is the same. And I noticed, because during the pandemic, since I was home alone, I decided to do Rover and do some dog boarding, since I work from home anyway. And what I was noticing, a lot of the people that are coming to me bought dogs during the pandemic, and these dogs have so much anxiety and stress, and I really don't know exactly why that's the case, why so many of these dogs, I mean, pretty much every dog that has been purchased during the pandemic has some emotional issues going on. And so it's great to have the tools to be able to help them feel better. Especially, I mean, it causes anxiety for them to be away from their loved ones, even
Oh
just for a day,
yeah.
right? That's not easy the first day, when you're starting something new. And so to be able to help them calm and feel grounded and safe is important. So I use my energy healing there as well.
I
Does
love
that does
yeah.
that help
Yeah,
understand?
no, I think it's really interesting. I mean, just the observation that you made. I mean, and it does make even the fact that like when we were in the pandemic, we weren't really able to leave in a lot of cases. So just from a behavioral standpoint, dogs are trained. Hey, this is what is normal. This is what is to be expected. And then when the pandemic ended,
Yeah.
I can see a lot of just logically, not only just the emotional standpoint of what they're
Yeah.
experiencing. So I think that's
Yeah,
really
and I also feel that they could sense the global consciousness, that they're living in a house that people are watching the news, and if there's a lot of fear, so it shifts for them as well. And then we're feeding off of them, their energy, you
yeah.
know?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
my husband, he used to be a dog trainer and
Oh, wow.
but for a sport. So
Uh-huh.
for it's Shih Tzu, so it's like dogs that have high drive, and he would teach them to do protection work, obedience, and tracking. And so anyway, so even this is even early in our marriage, like 20 plus years ago. And so
Mhm.
I've always had pets, but he drilled it in my head so much that dogs can sense everything that you're feeling, and so
Yeah.
like, oh yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
where was there was something I wanted to ask you because I know our time is kind of coming to the point. So I wanted to
Yeah.
make sure that we hit on everything. I know what it was. Okay, so the energy work that I have done, I've done both in person and I've had people that can do it over the internet. So like how is your work? Do you only do in person? Do you do stuff like through Zoom? Like how's your stuff work?
Yeah, mostly through Zoom. And I work with people all over the world. So
Okay.
that's pretty awesome. But I do have some friends that live to me, all the way on the other side of the island, the west side,
Yeah.
which to
Yeah.
me takes like 45 minutes for them to drive. They want to come over here just
Mhm.
to be here with me. And so, yeah, I do that. And I had a lady who was coming on vacation and she said she wanted to come to be with me here to have this work done because she just feels it works best for her. But it really doesn't. It's just that I think people like to be in the presence of a person to feel their energy deeper, I guess. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so from my standpoint, I'm just going to share my viewpoint, but like,
Mhm.
so I was a yoga instructor for 10 plus years before the pandemic hit, and I'm a person who can project my emotions. So I can project my calmness onto my class, and then they can immediately feel it. And it's one of the reasons I had like a really, really popular class, right? Because it didn't matter what style I taught or what flow that I did, and so people would always come and they'd be like, oh my gosh, I just feel so nice, right? And so like that ability to protect your emotions. I can teach yoga on the internet through Zoom or whatever, but it is not the same thing. So even though people may still feel calm and everything, I am missing that feedback. Like, so they can still feed
Mhm.
me, but I can't necessarily feed them. And I think maybe it could be just a little bit different because, like, when we're doing a Zoom, we're one-on-one, so I can sense you.
Right.
But when you have this electronic screen in these little tiny boxes, and all these people that are way over here and you're like doing this, it's like, so anyway, I can totally
Yeah.
relate to wanting to be in somebody's presence
Yeah.
and to literally not just have, because energy is transcendent. I mean, it can
Mhm.
zap to you very quick,
Yeah. Oh,
but
it can.
yeah,
It can literally zap you in the head. Boom.
yeah, yeah, it totally can. So,
Yeah.
but I can understand wanting that connection, um,
Mm.
the space wise. So yeah, but
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. One of the things that I do for people who purchase packages and work with me long term is I will actually walk. It's kind of interesting because you're here, but like I can literally walk around you on the computer and I can sense your energy and I can actually feel different parts of your body that have etheric cords, and I can take them out of you. Just you don't even have to be here, but you're being here on the video camera, I can sense you and feel your energy. It's pretty awesome.
it is really awesome. Yeah, I know that I've done a lot of like meditation over cord works, just a side
Mhm.
topic for all of my audience. But
Yeah.
anyway, like I know that so I have a special needs child, a neurodiverse child, and that cord keeps getting reattached and I have to keep going in
Oh,
and like so
yeah.
anyway, but I truly love her and she's definitely a gift and
Yeah.
the
No, that's
universe.
smart that you protect your energy, especially because she needs your energy.
Yeah,
Um, if you're being zapped, then you can't give.
yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. When I first started working with an energy healer, like one-on-one, I remember telling them every time my child touches me, I can feel my energy leave my body and I'm immediately tired. And I was
Mhm.
like, is that such a thing?
It is,
This,
that is,
it
it's
is.
true.
But I mean, this is why I share it because there's who knows who who is experiencing
Yeah.
what that is listening right now. And so I like to
Yeah.
share things and I like to be vulnerable because if we don't talk about it, we don't normalize it. So,
Mhm.
and this happens legitimately.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So cord cutting is good. Shielding is good. There's many things that you can learn to do to protect your energy. And then another thing is if you work with in a situation like a hospital, I work with a lot of nurses that have, feel drained at the end of the day. And it's because, again, cording in the hospital. And yeah, you need to protect yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely one of the things I've had to learn to do.
Mhm.
And I have to remind myself too sometimes, like that self-reflective, like life lesson. I'm like, why do I feel this way? Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so this podcast is going to be releasing probably like the middle of March. And I know you mentioned that you have a special going on right now. And this is we're recording for everybody listening. We're recording at the end of February. So I don't know that your special will be going on at that point.
Yeah.
I will
But if
definitely.
someone, oh, I'm sorry, no, if somebody is listening to this podcast, just send me a message and I will honor the price for you. Yeah.
Yay, that's wonderful.
Yay.
Okay.
In
All right.
the
And I
future.
will include Gina's contact information in our show notes. You can definitely access her. I know that she's on I was going to say TikTok, but what I meant to say was Instagram. I know she's on Instagram because I follow her and I also follow her on Facebook. So yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I'm No, I'm just really excited about, the future because like you, I'm super curious and I love learning. And yeah, there's going to be so much change that we're already in the change mode, and there's just going to be so much more coming, and I'm excited.
I'm excited too. And I'm
Yeah.
like you. I love to learn and I love to grow and I'm just fascinated about everything. And it is just for everybody out there that's listening. It's just so good to share this space with Gina and to be in her energy and to feel her joy. So thank you for coming on to, my podcast and for explaining this to all of the audience and to being a resource for them in case they have questions. So
Yeah, reach out anytime. I'm totally available for you.
thank
And
you.
if you're looking to access a relationship heart wall special, break down your heart wall with somebody you love, then send me a DM and let me know, and I will definitely honor that price for you.
That's wonderful. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. All right.
Thank you,
Well,
Ashley.
thank you. And for everybody listening, I will see you next week and I'm looking forward to it. Bye-bye.
Bye. Aloha.